Well, hey there, idiots. Welcome back to Observe. In today's video, we're going to be analyzing the nonverbal communication of Natalia Grace and Michael Barnett. Again, this is part 2 to this second interaction. There are many videos before this. Let's go ahead and roll the intro, though. Now, before we dive into the actual video of today, I want to be able to talk about today's sponsor, Brilliant, the free and easy way to deepen your understanding on subjects like math or science, engineering, and more. With the ever-growing influence of computers and computational aids in the world, have you ever found yourself curious about perhaps how the science behind these machines functions? While some subjects can be a bit overwhelming, the best way to unravel the mysteries of computer science doesn't have to involve emptying your wallet or spending years in a classroom. In fact, it's actually quite the opposite now, thanks to Brilliant. Brilliant is more than just a learning platform, it's an experience. Imagine a place where learning is not a chore, but an exciting journey. Whether you're a passionate connoisseur about computer sciences, for instance, or just getting started, Brilliant has you covered. For starters, let's talk about their interactive learning. No more boring lectures or endless textbook. Brilliant uses hands-on interactive methods that turn learning into something more of a game, almost. You get similar vibes to leveling up your favorite video game character, but this time it's with knowledge and it's your own brain. Furthermore, it's not just about watching videos or reading articles. Brilliant challenges you with problems to solve, making sure that you truly grasp the concepts themselves. It's almost like having access to a personal tutor at any time that you specifically would like. But learning is not just a solo adventure either. With Brilliant, you get to join a community of like-minded individuals. Passionate learners from around the world are able to collaborate and discuss ideas centered around science, engineering, math, data science, and data analysis. This makes learning feel less isolating and more approachable, knowing that you're not alone in your knowledge journey. Now, here's what I feel is the best part: the accessibility. Brilliant makes learning accessible to everyone, no matter your background, your expertise levels. There's something for you. And even better, you can start for free. You heard that correctly. You can start for free by going to brilliant.org/observe. So next time that you're itching to unravel the mathematical and scientific mysteries of the world, skip the hefty bills and the textbooks and dive directly into the captivating world of Brilliant. Trust me, you won't just learn, you'll actually thrive and have a good time while doing it. Again, check out the link in the description of this video, and big thank you again to Brilliant for sponsoring this video. Now, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Like I said, there are a number of videos that I have already done on this case, so if you haven't seen that one, if this is the first one, I suggest going and checking those other ones out first before you get into this one. This one won't make as much sense. Anyways, let's go ahead and just continue right in from where we left off in the last video. That's enough talking.
Can we go back a little bit?
Go wherever you want.
Do you remember the first time meeting me?
Yeah, sure do.
Do you remember meeting the family I was with before?
Never met them. They were in the room across the hall from ours. So we were each in these two little, I consider them like bedroom-esque things, but little offices. There was a hallway. We got there before you did. So we, Christine, I, the boys, are in this room. We can hear the front door open. We can hear voices, and we hear people walking down the hall. And we hear people go into that room, and we hear a voice say, well, just stay there until you're ready. The entire time, Jacob, Wesley, Ethan, and I are at this door with our ears pressed up against it like this, trying to hear everything we can. That's our new sister. That's our new daughter. What does she sound like? Hey, we heard her voice. What did she do? Hey, I think she said hi. We're doing that. Ethan goes and gets a glass, puts the glass against the wall. We start looking through the peephole to try to see if we can see anything. The boys spent the night making shirts. We love you, Natalia. Welcome home, sister. They were so excited. I remembered everything about the first day.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and pause after that whole recollection that he did there. It's obviously very spatially consistent. despite my disliking, which if you have watched the other videos before this, there's a decent, I feel, reason for my distaste of Michael here. Despite my distaste of Michael, I'm still not getting from him in this specific instance any form of desynchronization of anything that might be slipping out that could be contrary to what he's saying, aka I think he's being authentic with this recollection. It might be play acted up. That's his MO right now, is that everything seems to be very, very dialed up. But I don't get the feeling that he's making up any instance of this. And we're also seeing this effort that he's making of building more rapport with Natalia continue to work as she's trying to fight back her own happiness or mirth in response to his antics. And so now we're seeing still a little bit more of this relationship forming within this interaction. Again, for those of you who saw the first interaction that they had, it was an atrocity. This one seems to be covering much more ground. However, it is not because of lack of manipulation being present. That's still very present here. It's just majorly from Michael's side. Let's keep watching.
About the first day.
I remember that day too. I remember sitting in a chair right across from where you guys were. But I also remember Diane and Gary coming in the room.
I never met them. They never came in our room. They kept us totally separate. The adoption by Shepherd Care people told us it was a closed adoption, and the surrendering family did not want to share any information with us and did not want to meet us. We've never met. I have never met Gary or Diane.
Now I'm a little suspicious of Michael. Before, what wasn't really existent was a packing of his side of the narrative, and this could be done through verbatim repetition. This could be done through the repetition of concepts, anything along those lines where we're just really seeing somebody try to hammer something home. And now we're getting to this part about she's pushing back a little bit, and he starts packing that with I never met, never ever once met, never once meeting, never meeting once, ever never. And so this insistence on that never side of things is a little bit of a red flag to me. I'm a little curious as to why he felt the need to really hammer that home. What's hanging behind that question here? Why might there be this desire for him to pack that narrative so tightly unless there's a case of possible deceit? Again, his nonverbal communication is so dialed up on every level that it all has an air of falseness about it, of fakeness to it. Everybody's picking up on this performative side of things, and that still is consistent. Let's keep watching.
I don't know what that's about then.
I didn't know their names until like a month later.
Really, now what I'm getting from Michael here is he's obviously sitting back, he's crossed his arms. That might be some closure, nonverbal communication, closing himself off. He might not be as open, could be a sign of defensiveness in regards to this packing that he also did just a little bit earlier. Another thing that I've noticed here is that he is now studying Natalia to see. He's obviously gauging her. This is no longer just a checking in socially. This is something to where he's looking for a specific response from her to see, is this something that he's going to have to continue to hammer home or not. So I am a little suspicious of Michael in this area, that perhaps there was some form of contact between the Barnetts and Natalia's prior guardians at the time. So it's feeling a little bit suspicious here. Let's just keep watching.
I remember Diane and Gary came out and they told me that you guys wanted to see me.
But they never came in our room and talked to us. They came in, dropped you off, came back out, talked to the people, and gone.
I got a question for you.
Yeah, I got lots of answers for you.
Here we're seeing Natalia have some difficulty come back with that response that Michael just gave there, and I'm feeling like she's starting to perhaps doubt her own recollection of the situation. Michael's giving off a lot of confidence with the speed of his response, and he's staying fairly consistent with it. Now, even within the storyline that he's presenting, there is the possibility that this was an entirely closed adoption. Like he's saying here, there was no interaction, and he's sticking to that. There's a number of these small things that we're seeing that really are pushing me away from fully believing that, and it's not setting well with me. So at this point in this interview, I'm still maintaining the suspicious feeling in regards to what he's saying here and what he's presenting here, but it looks like we're about to move on.
Yeah, I got lots of answers for you. You might not like all of them, but I got them.
I mean, look, what you gotta say, I'm gonna hear it. Okay.
Honey?
Do you remember putting a lock on my door?
Yes. The latch,
Yeah.
we were actually told to do that by the doctors.
Do you remember what happened?
So Natalia is asking about a problematic behavior from Michael. There's an opportunity for Michael to take a little bit of responsibility here. And so he does acknowledge that he remembers something. And then he immediately, as we've seen before on repeat here, he immediately hangs it onto the responsibility of somebody else. We did that, but it was because the doctor said to do that. Also during that time, Michael has stopped checking in with Natalia. He's been checking in pretty regularly. Either he's analyzing to see what her response to what his antics are, or he's checking in socially, but during this phrasing, he keeps his eyes thoroughly diverted. And that lets me know that there's probably a level of shame or guilt playing out across his mind at that time, as that diversion of eyes is very classic during that emotional state. So there is that possibility that that's coming in there, and it would make sense contextually, as he might feel some shame for putting a lock on a child's door, regardless of how many medical experts said to do so. So we're seeing that play out. We're still understanding a little bit more about Michael Barnett and Natalia in this little interview here. Let's keep watching.
What happened while you were putting the lock on the door?
Nope.
So you didn't realize that Christine was hitting me, or hitting me with a belt and letting the boys hit me and letting Jacob drop me? You didn't.
No.
So the initial response that Michael gives to this initial question, you don't know what was happening during the time that you were putting said latch on said door. I'm trying to run through everything that I saw non-verbally during that time. He does a complete freeze for a little bit. He does a freeze and he looks into space there. That looking into space and that freeze is curious to me. And it's curious to me for two different reasons. Either one, he's trying to recollect, or two, he's trying to see where this is going so he can fabricate a lie. And both are possible for me. Now, what he does afterwards is he says nope, and he has a synchronized no shake with that, and he does sit back a bit and does a reposturing in that. Now, I gotta be honest, I'm not totally certain in that area whether or not this is portraying that he's just trying to remember that instance, or if I'm seeing all of this because he does have knowledge of what happened at that time, and he's trying to decide the best way to lie about it. And Michael is not unheard. It's not unheard of Michael for him to want to omit things from his own narrative. It's even shown on the documentary itself, times that he had done that or encouraged people around him to do that. And so this part strikes me as interesting as well. I'm a little suspicious. I'm a little suspicious on a couple different areas of Michael. Let's just keep watching here.
Things relating to Jacob. I didn't learn until 2 years ago when Jacob came back. And I just started to learn those things. He and I have been trying to figure out how to mentally come to terms with things that she forced them to do. He is so sorry.
This is interesting. Unless this is edited differently, Michael just made a hard attempt to steer the entirety of the conversation in such a way that's not to a different topic, but to a parallel topic that still seems to answer the emotional toll of what Natalia is experiencing without being implicative of Michael, which he seems to be extremely good at, finding a way to be able to paint the narrative in such a way that he's just an innocent bystander at all times, and that simply can't be the case. Even if you greatly attempt to be just an innocent bystander at all times, inevitably that has an effect in and of itself. So we're seeing him try to do this state of manipulation, and he does so very persistently with talking about Jacob, relating it to the instance that Natalia brings up, and continues to talk about Jacob. And as is Michael's tendency, he also starts to try to group himself into the healing group of Jacob now. So he's now in the healing group of Natalia. He's in the healing group with Jacob, and nothing is Michael's fault during all of this, according to his side of things, regardless. And that, as you know, that's a red flag to me. Let's keep watching.
He is so slow. And I have to keep reminding him over and over and over when we talk about this. He was a child who was being forced to do it. And it wasn't him. In the last 3 years, Jacob and I have probably cried together over 100 times regarding this incident, or that incident, or this incident. Wish I could tell you a couple other things, but I'm not allowed to tell you while on camera and on a microphone.
There's pausing here. So again, something that I find fascinating that Michael has done, non-verbally speaking, he has continued to keep his eyes diverted. He has not looked up at Natalia this entire time. That is breaking from his baseline that he has been displaying throughout the rest of this interaction. Strikes me as interesting. Also, in that vein of nonverbal display is the guilt and shame of breaking eye contact down and to the side like that. So those two lining up like that strikes me as interesting. He might be feeling a level of guilt and shame in regards to this. Now, what I find fascinating that he's doing verbally is that he's continually grouping himself in with his offspring. And he's even said that his kid, just a child, was being forced to do it. He had no control over the situation. He was just a kid. Very true. Very accurate. Also accurate from Natalia's side. Just a child. Doesn't really have a lot of control over the situation. And then what I find fascinating is that Michael then tries to take himself, the adult, one of the parents, one of the guardians, and regardless of his trauma or abuse that he's going through at the time, he is still the adult as opposed to the child. He tries to take himself and group himself in with the children. And this is massive manipulation from Michael, because he's not a child and he doesn't have the same responsibility as a child in the situation. Therefore, his healing journey should not be the same as the children that he was complicit in the terrible actions towards, regardless of his own trauma and his own possible abuse. So this is another interesting thing that we're seeing from Michael. He is seemingly a pro at manipulation. Let's keep watching.
There's a lot of crossed lines of who did what and when. Everything that Christine has ever said or claimed, just assume it's a lie.
How did you even feel when Christine was beating me?
Again, he repeats this, everything that Christine ever said or mentioned, just assume was a lie. Again, he's made it to where anything that Christine could have been said about him is also a lie. He's still covering his own butt. Everything that seems to be presented from Michael has zero to little concern about anybody else and has everything to do about himself. And that's fairly telling, especially as the possible parent or guardian in this situation, regardless if it was current or prior. Just an interesting mindset that's coming from Michael during this. Let's keep watching.
Or
I will tell you specifically how I felt. One day I come home from work and you know already what the air at home was. And I came in, your nose was on the wall in the kitchen. And Christine got up and she just looked at me. Back your wife up. And she went and grabbed you off the wall and she yanked you pretty good. You're over there and she gets you to here. Stay out of my way or you'll never see your sons again. And she launches you on the ground. And the usual, who are you? Where have you been? And she's wailing it. So I'm stunned from what's going on. I'm shocked. I'm frozen in fear. And I know for a fact, if I do anything, I never see Wesley, Ethan, or Jacob ever again. And I hate to put it to you in that fashion, but I just wanted to have my family all together. So I start recording it.
I'm going to go ahead and pause here. Again, Michael seems to be fairly consistent with his spatial recollection of certain instances and storylines. I find that fascinating, just in even how his own mental processing works and the consistency across, and his recollection of this scenario that he's painting, which he only describes one scenario to try to blanket all of Natalia's question. He describes one small scenario, but as he's describing it, it seems to be emotionally hitting for Natalia as well, which I guarantee you that if Michael is as attuned to manipulation as he seems to be, he's picking up on that. So he knows that he's talking down the right line of descriptors and triggering points for Natalia, for him to be able to regain emotional control. Now, the instance that he describes does sound very threatening. It does sound difficult and complicated to be able to navigate. That being said, there is an instance of definite abuse occurring, and the thing that he's worried about is the possibility of another threat. So he's using the possibility, an imagined scenario, to outweigh his need and his responsibility to do action. And that seems to be something that really quantifies Michael's existence, is that he seems to be a fairly anxious individual, to put it simply. Let's keep watching.
And the only thing I can think is if I could just show her, look at this. This is abhorrent. I'm just thinking maybe I could just show it to her and she'll see how bad she is and she'll stop. She'll realize she's gone too far and she'll stop. Except she's crazy and logic's not going to work.
Non-suspicious because of the strain from Michael's baseline. He's shifted from his normal, fairly performative cadence that he has been in for the entirety of the rest of this interview to this now, what's supposed to be very intensely emotional state that he's in. He's got his head in his hand. He's massaging it. This is all intense signs of agitation. We're hearing this emotion coming into his vocal cords as he's entering into vocal fry range, and we're supposed to really feel emotion from that. But then what we're starting to notice is the pattern of his words again. They're no longer flowing with the emotion, they're flowing with a specific cadence that he wants to be able to provide. It's not synchronized with his emotion, it's synchronized with his performance. So we're understanding that he's not actually feeling this emotion down at his core, he's using this emotion to be able to present better this story. And that's to not only gain more power within this interaction, but then also to present himself again as this holy, righteous knight in shining armor who just happens to be the purest of white all the way through. And that's simply not the case, and it's still just adding more weight to how manipulative Michael has been throughout all of his screen time, really. Let's keep watching.
So when she's done, she takes you up to your room. While she's up there, I get my phone and I hit play on it so I could look at it. And it's just disgusting. Unfortunately, while I'm looking at it, she showed up right behind me.
Here we're hearing it again. So from Natalia's side, a consistent form of emotion. You could hear the physiological effects of the breathing. You could see the inflammation, the crying. Natalia's experienced genuine emotion. On Michael's side, again, we're hearing him try to force in a lot of intense emotion behind certain phrases, and then it'll crash heavily out of that again into more of a calculated tone that fits with his narrative. And again, it gives you the very immediate impression that this is all a performance from Michael, that on at least on some level, all of this emotional display that he's trying to more or less shove down everybody's throats is forced, it's fake, and it isn't quite hitting home for him. That's not really encouraging for his case, but there's more left. Let's keep watching.
And if I ever want to see my kids again, I have to reset my phone right now in front of her and delete everything.
Hard cut there, obviously. Could have had anything that happened in between that time there, but at the very end, you still see him consistently holding his gaze down to the side in that area that we've found to be suspicious for him. And he's doing some pretty massive manipulators on his hands here with the hand wringing and pressing. And those are signs of agitation now in regards to seeing that, coupled with the possible shame or guilt, mixed with these interesting crashes in between emotional states. I'm not certain that that agitation is in regards to him going through a traumatic event, or if it's in regards to him trying to display that he felt he went through a traumatic event in order to gain more sympathy, to manipulate. Fascinating things. Looks like we're at a different area here. Let's keep watching.
Stuff happened while I was in that Westfield apartment. I got exposed to sexual stuff. Christine never taught me how to take care of myself. Christine never taught me anything about stranger danger, or she told me she did.
Okay, this part is a little frustrating for me in regards to what Michael's displaying in reaction to what Natalia's saying. Natalia starts off with something that seems to be pretty traumatic. Should have a fairly emotional response on the people around her if they do in fact care about her. And Michael's response is a desynchronized reaction of possible pain on the top half of his face. Bottom half of his face stays fairly stationary, while the upper half of his face suddenly has all this activation for pain. And this is supposed to be in regards to Natalia describing this traumatic event. A half-hearted, mostly desynchronized display of possible pain. Then it gets around to the part where Michael hears that he might have an area to shift blame, again to Christine, as Natalia says, Christine didn't tell me how to do ... And now we're seeing Michael really try to lay on his play acting. He's trying to now involve the rest of his body. Again, we're not seeing any of the inflammation around his eyes. We're not seeing any mucus. We're not seeing any of the genuine physiological responses of pain and trauma in Michael. But we are now seeing it across his whole body as he's really trying to play act that he is feeling a level of pain or guilt. Now, maybe he is feeling some and he just doesn't know how to portray that pain. That doesn't strike me as quite the case, in that we've seen him display true pain and frustration when challenging towards himself. So I'm seeing very overt manipulation from Michael during this part. And again, just another area where he sees an opportunity to shift blame away from himself, even though it's in the midst of somebody else telling a traumatic event in their own life. He just wants to capitalize. It's kind of gross. Let's keep watching.
Did you notice she was putting makeup on me? When she did the makeup, she literally told me, this is what an adult looks like. When a kid does their makeup, they look like a clown. Did you know that she was sending him to a guy trying to get me put on a date?
I just found that out 3 or 4 weeks ago. When she did that, you were in the Westfield apartment, right?
No, I was still in the house.
Still in the house. But now I didn't know that. Did you ever have to speak to any of these people or meet any of these people?
No, I don't remember talking to anybody. I didn't even know that she was doing that until I found out when I was 2019, maybe.
I'm sorry that was your experience. I'm sorry that they didn't have the wherewithal to press the right charges in the right place. Like, they can still get her right now if they want to.
I cried myself to sleep. 40 years after. And nobody listened.
So at the end there, as Natalia is talking about another traumatic event in her life, we're seeing Michael try to emote along with that. Again, there's points of the desynchronization. We're seeing him mainly crash in and out of intense emotional portions as opposed to not, without any of the lingering physiological effects that would go into that. So to see him crashing in and out of that is still interesting to me. It's fairly performative. Throughout that, Natalia stays consistent. You see the profile of her pain and her torment actually come into play, and it contrasts so heavily with what Michael presents there that we're left really wondering how much of what Michael has said can be genuinely relied upon. If I had to make some form of judgment based off of what we've done in the videos on the channel so far, I feel like there was a level of trauma that Michael did undergo and have to deal with that really did lead to some of his behaviors, but it wasn't to the degree that he had no control as he presented. I do believe that one of Michael's greatest failures during this was his willingness to be complacent in areas that he should have taken a stand of some form, especially in regards to somebody that was under his care. So let me know what you feel in the comments of this video. Let me know if there are any other blips that you would like me to take a look at, any other cases. I've heard a number of people requesting a number of different things, so please fill the comments with whatever you feel like would be a good video to follow up this series with. If you would like to be able to support the channel differently, consider becoming a member. There's like one tier. You get some badges and some interaction and things like that, but it's just a really meaningful way to support the channel a little bit more if you're in the mood for that. Big thanks again to our sponsor for this video. I wish that back when I was heavily involved in school and classes that form of learning existed for me, because I feel like I would have been able to take it in a lot better than just the basic book work and lecture time. So go check them out, especially if you also feel like you might learn a little bit differently. But without further ado, that's all that I've got for the day. My name is Logan, and you have been oh so awesome as you always are, and I will see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.